Hello, good afternoon and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the resumption of the one and only Middle of the Pack Racing League Winter GR86 Championship for 2025 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the brilliant batting action in the championship campaign that continues to give and always wants to answer the question, who is the master of the Toyota GR86 Cup car? Well, with the dust having settled from the Free Content Cup in rounds 1 through to 4, and while mid-season break now complete, we are back today to resume all the racing action with the second half of the championship campaign and the commencement of the Roval Cup, because it is round 5 of 8, and we're here today in the United States of America at the Phoenix International Raceway, albeit taking the time machine all the way back to the year of 2008 for the earlier legacy layout of the road course of the Roval circuit, but all the drivers will be absolutely itching to go racing today at one of the premier Roval circuits in the US of A. A circuit spanning the best part of 1.51 miles in distance and consisting of 13 corners. Its combination of hairpins, sweepers and a wide open road racing surface, while the widest on average compared to most modern circuits of its generation, where it is a circuit like no other when it offers opportunities for overtaking action at every single corner and the opportunity not just to go 2 or 3 wide but perhaps even 4 or 5 wide depending on how brave our drivers are. But as we get ready to take a look back at all the racing actions if it were live, because of course you're tuning into a post-round broadcast, albeit what it means is this broadcast itself is live, and welcome to you all tuning in live. However, the racing action itself you're going to be seeing occurred on Wednesday the 5th of March, where we're bringing it to you as if it were live this Saturday the 8th of March. It does mean here in the content booth we do not know what happens, whether it be in the current practice sessions coming to a close, the upcoming qualifying session or the race. We're going to be bringing it to you as if it were live and with all that raw live race experience, and we do request there's no spoilers in our respective chats. But where are my manners? We need to introduce with regards to the broadcast our schedule for today. And starting off with this broadcast, you could be tuning in now via one of 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. You could be tuning in via YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX141TX, alternative Paul Walsh. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, including none over than Nick Bader's father there, David H. Bader. And good evening to you, David, and I hope you're doing well and all excited for today. Alternatively, you could be tuning in via Twitch at twitch.com/what is TX141. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch TV. But regardless of what media platform you're tuning on, the broadcast schedule will remain the same, and you can see the schedule there, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time UTC, and we're now just under 12 minutes, so we're going to the qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration, split into 2 equal halves, and all the drivers absolutely out there looking to give it their all from 5:15. After which we'll go straight to what is our one and only race on the schedule for round number 5. It is of course our 30-minute sprint race. No pit stops expected. It's going to be flat out, full on action from lights out to checker flag, and who will be our victors? That's the big question that we want the answers to, as the championship has definitely taken itself up a notch after the theatrics at Alton Park only 2 weeks ago. But speaking of theatrics and everything that's played out, well, let's give you a recap at how things stand after 4 rounds. Of course, let's start off by taking a look back at our calendar. And we can see the Free Content Cup is now complete, because last time out on the 19th of February, we were in the United Kingdom to complete our British doubleheader with the Alton Park Island Circuit playing host to our drivers. And there were shocks abound with our leading drivers in both the Pro and the AM classes, so James Logston and Nick Bader respectively, both having nightmare days. However, for Logston, it was all about damage limitation. He was able to get to the end of the race. Meanwhile, for Nick Bader, it all went so horribly wrong, and it meant he had to retire and unfortunately yield what was the Free Content Cup crown to Blake Phillips. Whereas James Logston still picking up the crown in the Pro class, albeit his advantage severely slashed. But we're into the Roval Cup now. 4 rounds of racing, 4 premier Roval road course circuits in the US of A. And well, we start off at the Phoenix Raceway today, albeit after today we'll make our way to Charlotte, then to Miami, and then to Indianapolis to bring the curtain down the 26th of March in our feature race finale for round 8 of 8. But coming on from our calendar then to our championship standings after 4 rounds, we start off with the Pro class standings overall. And what we can see here, James Logston leads by a diminished advantage now of what is 17 points over John Lauzon. Albeit Logston still does have the cards in his favour and that momentum is still with him, but you would argue, could this be a blow from Alton Park that may stay with him now into the final 4 rounds of the championship, or will he be back on top form today? Well, Lauzon will be the man who'll be very eager to try and right the wrongs of Alton Park as well, as he had plenty of drama there and he wasn't able to capitalise on the situation as much as he would have liked. Edwin Offred sits in P3, a further 7 afield. And it's George Louise there sitting P4 with a big point score. Alton Park sitting move up into the top 5 just ahead of David Adeyemi on 139 points. Aaron last, it's P6 on 138, only a third point adrift, and it's a further 2 to the race winner overall in the pro class at Alton Park, Julian Jones, with Tom Bryce, Shahi Zahair and Kai Marais completing your top 10. But outside the top 10, Aaron Tiggett, Bester SP11 and the last of our runners in the pro class. Going on to the AM class standings meanwhile, and here we can see the change of complexion with the fact that it's a 31 point advantage going the way of Blake Phillips, and Glenn Bratton and Nick Bader are level on points on 130 apiece. And right now, can Blake Phillips maintain that advantage, or at least not let it come down too rapidly? Well, one thing is for certain, Nick Bader is going to be very eager to prove the doubters wrong and bring that gap down as quickly as possible, because he has been the fastest driver in the AM class on average over the first 4 rounds. But given a very different style of venues for the final 4 rounds of the championship, could this be an idyllic setting that's more suitable for Blake Phillips or perhaps some other drivers in the AM class? Bill Costa will be one of them. He's only a further 5 points outside of the top 3. There's a further 10 to Nick Yakubov in P at 5 for Slipstream Slavs. And you have Mark Senegal in P at 6, who's found himself in a little bit of a middling season so far, and we're hoping to be on top form now as we resume the racing. But he's ahead of Roger Ganesh, with Carl Peterson, Marlon Brandel, and Jermaine Warren completing the AM top 10. And then outside the top 10, let's not forget about them, Jason Seelin and Navra Kumar, who complete the AM championship standings. And then coming on to the team's championship, last but not least, Bear Pope Zero lead the way on 310 points, and they maintain a reasonable advantage despite big damage in their championship hopes last time out at Alton Park, and their advantage stand at the best part of 41 points over ITT West Interns Pro Esports Division. But meanwhile, they in turn are ahead of their sister team by 11 points, the ITT West Senior Vice Presidents Division. We then do have Sunday GT Turtles in P4 on 194 points. They're in a bit of a back and forth battle with the Pit Club Sim Racing, with that big score for Blake Phillips, moving the team into that P5 slot and firmly chasing down Sunday GT Turtles. It's Slipstream Sloss and Caboose Crew who complete the team's championship standings. And then coming on to what is our circuit for today. We're giving you a recap of the standings and the championship calendar, but what specifically about the 2008 layout of the road course of the Phoenix Raceway that we need to know about. We're located in the city of Avondale in Maricopa County of the US state of Arizona. The circuit spanning 1.51 miles and 13 corners, and thanks to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator and the track mats that come with it, which brings the circuit to life. It is a relatively flat circuit, minus the banking on the ovals, and that will be a commonality across our Roval courses. However, as we mentioned earlier and alluded to, this is a circuit where battling can run from the start lap all the way to the end, and it's not just because of the slipstream orientated action on the partial portions of the oval that we run in, which will see our drivers take the oval all the way from the exit of turn 11 round to what will be the run into turn number 1, but it's also the fact you've got a plentiful wide road racing surface, and therefore every corner presents an overtaking opportunity. But if you go for a battle into certain corners, such as turns 3 through to 6, alternatively coming through the kinks of 9 and 10, you're going to be severely offline, and that may cost you a lot of road racing time. Therefore, it's going to be all about playing it tactically. Do you decide to go for the moves early, or do you play the weighted game and perhaps try to make a slipstream-assisted pass on the banking in order to get the job done? And I suspect we could be seeing a drag race all the way to that final checkered flag. With all that in mind, and the combination of hairpins and sweepers here is definitely going to be one to unsettle the rhythm of our drives so far. But let's come on to our rules before we do go racing. We can't go racing without rules. And as we can see, setup-wise, drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by the Middle of the Pack Racing League Administration. Fuel loads are restricted to 27.3 litres for parity. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used. It will last 15 minutes to split into 2 equal halves. The AM class shall take to the circuit for the first half, and the Pro class shall take to the circuit for the second half. Now we should point out, as highlighted in red there will be a 1-minute intermission between the qualifying sessions for this round, because we do have a special event occurring midway through qualifying, so we will see the AM and Pro classes respectively only have 7 minutes in their respective qualifying sessions today, rather than the typical 7.5 minutes, and we'll explain more on that when the time is right. As for our race, the sprint race shall begin via a standing start, as is the tradition of the Winter GR86 Championship, with each driver having 1 fast repair available, and should the driver pick up 15 or more instant points, they will be subject to a drive crew penalty. That's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're here for the racing. Indeed, I get the feeling that you guys girls tuning at home are doing so as well, but as we do look to our drivers coming towards the end of what is this final practice warm-up session, well, here is John Lauzon making his way on through in the breakfast for dinner privateer machine. You can see they're absolutely hugging the inside wall of turn 1 into 2 there, and perhaps the tightest corner in the fact that you've got to be absolutely tight towards a very long braking zone through turn 1. There's only really 1 line through there. You can go 2 wide, perhaps even 3 wide, but then if you find yourself on the outside, you'll find yourself very prone to understeer. But as Lauzon bounces his way around the circuit right now, and makes his way on through at the right-hander there. The tailback hairpin turns 8 through to 9. Well, the key theme is here in the well is the fact that you have a lot of direction changes and also some very heavily raised curves on those apex, and you don't really want to hit those curves if you can help it, because it can severely unsettle the car. But I'm sure John will be all aware about that, and indeed the man who had a bit of misfortune at Alton Park when there was a golden opportunity for him to score big, it all went in the wrong direction. The same could be said for James Logston, who's parked in the pit lane there for Bear Pope 0, and the Pro Championship leader will be hoping for a much more straightforward day today at the races. But one driver who'll be looking for redemption, here he is, the AM man with a plan, Nick Bader, and will currently the fastest of our AM drivers provisionally in this practice session, only by the best part of a 10th there over Roger Ganesh, interestingly enough, who sits P5. I wonder whether the Roval style circuit is definitely benefiting some drivers more than others, because Nick Bader, well, the commonality being the fact that he has been the fastest AM driver on outright pace and over a single lap, it would seem typically, with Blake Phillips being his number 2. But today so far the number 2 seems to be this man from Sunday GT Turtle. He's only ever picked up 1 win in class in his entire history in the middle of the pack racing league, and well, he would love to make it 2 wins. Roger Ganesh been one of those drivers who has been on the grid for as long as I can remember. I think for the best part it has been the last 3 years he has been on the grid on the middle of the pack racing league. He's only ever scored 1 AM class win, and that was back in 2024, and he'll be hoping for more today, and he's looking good out there. As Glenn Bratton, meanwhile, P7 in this AM class in terms of the overall stands, but P3 when you substitute what is the pro class drivers out of the equation, and well, you do have Nick Yakubov a little bit further afield. But conversely, what is very intriguing, Blake Phillips not seemingly locking on to what is the lap time around here, and we're currently all the way down in P13 this practice session, and that might be a little bit of an unwelcome surprise to him, given the fact he really was coming on strong over the course of the Free Content Cup, but perhaps he's now got it to do all again with the Roval Cup. When we talked a lot about the AM drivers, we do say hello to Edwin Onofre there in the YouTube chat, who says, let's go indeed, Edwin. And well, speaking of Mr. Onofre, here he is making his way on out of the pit lane and in towards turn number 1, and as he does so here, with the number 99 driver running that traditional red and black livery machine that we've come to know him for, well, as he makes his way on through turns 5, 6 and in towards the complex of 7 very shortly, albeit there he goes through 6 and having to really try and go as late as possible there before going all the way into the long right hand hairpin, which starts off with the apex of 7, and then it's 2 double apexes at 8 and 9 before the switchback left-hander, or what is that very small kink of 10, but it can catch out many of a driver. And Onofre currently in P3, and well, only 3 tenths of the fastest time set by Logston, the only what is there 105.9, which has been set. In fact, I double checked my numbers. In fact, we've got 2 105.9s, and John Nelson has just crept his way into the 105.9s, well, 105.99 to the nearest 100, as an off-road decides to tuck into the slipstream of the back there, the slipstream slofts car of Nick Yakubov, getting very close. And well, that is, I think, going to be a bit of foreshadowing for what is to come when we do go racing, in how close our drivers are going to get under slipstream conditions. And well, there will be a little bit of nervousness and twitchiness between the 2 of them as he makes his way in towards turn number 1. And an off-road, they're giving us a little bit of insight as to the livery on the car, and saying it represents a team that competes in SRO of America, and well, that's absolutely brilliant, and something tells me that might be the top level of what is esports in the US of A. I do know, and I think maybe you may be aware if you've been following the news on the North American content recently, that we do have the return of the Toyota Gazoo Racing North America Esports Cup, going alongside, of course, what is the official 2025 calendar for the Toyota GR North American Racing Cup in real life, and that's what the Toyota GR86 car was based on in iRacing. It's been based on and exactly taken as a replica of the real life car that was introduced to the racing scene in 2023, and it's back for its 3rd year of championship racing, both on the simulator and in real life. And I can tell you one thing, it continues to deliver as one of the great entryways in some of the top tiers of North American racing, if not on the international stage. But without further ado, as practice now comes to a close, the clock strikes 1 hour and 15 minutes. You know what time it is then, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for us to go into qualifying, and well, we'll be back very shortly to get the qualifying session underway. And as we do return, well, the AM qualifying session immediately kicks off here at the Phoenix Raceway, and all drivers immediately piling the way out the pit lane as quickly as they can. And they've only got 7 minutes on the clock today in order to try and get the job done nice and early. But will they be able to? That is going to be the challenge. As we see there, oh, going to be a little bit of a stop there between a couple of drivers. I think that might have been a little bit of a moment between Carl Peterson and what was Roger Ganesh, unless I'm mistaken. And yes, it was. I think there, Carl Peterson just missing a gear and almost stalling the car on pit exit. And, well, thankfully, no contact between the drivers there, but that could have been a bit of a nightmare. But the 250 driver gets himself up to speed now, and I think a bit of a firecracker behind him in terms of wanting that to try and right the wrongs, and gives the space to Ganesh, who he might feel as though he's inconvenienced slightly. But some good reactions there from Ganesh, and not to be caught sleeping behind the wheel before he's even left the pit lane in this qualifying session. So what can we expect in qualifying then? Well, first and foremost, given the fact that we do have quite a sizable chunk of the Phoenix Raceway oval as part of this Roval layout, having a slipstream is not going to go unnoticed. If you can pick up the tow, it is going to be worth at least about 3 attempts over the entirety of the lap's distance, particularly coming out the exit turn 11 at the hairpin, which you've just seen our drivers on screen do so, and then all the way up through the apexes of the second half of what is the oval bank in the turns 12 and 13 to complete the lap. So you can gain the best part of 3 attempts in the slipstream, if not a little bit more, and that might be helpful. But the flip side of the coin is, if you are in the dirty air of another driver as you make your way through the infield section, well, you've got to be a bit further back and be ready to anticipate what the dirty air does to the front end of the car when it invokes some additional understeer, because you lose some of that front end downforce balance. But as we do see Blake Phillips heading across the line, well, he goes on to his first flying lap. Those tyres are also going to take some time to warm up. We've got a relatively quick lap as well, and that is going to be on the minds of drivers, in the fact that quick laps normally mean that you do need multiple laps in order to get some tyre temperature. I think there was a bit of a sideways moment for Billman da Costa as we saw Blake Phillips make his way on through it, but here is the Bear Pope Zero driver now bringing himself back up to speed as he comes on through it. Turns 2, 3 and 4, through 5 he goes, and in towards 6 through the second left-handers. And going nice and wide over the apex curb and getting it parked absolutely on a dime in towards the turn 7 hairpin, and now around he goes there to do the 180-degree reversal through turns 8 and 9. But as he makes his way up towards turn number 11, well, right now the car absolutely looking good. But as he heads on through and in towards turn number 11, well, I can see there Carl Peterson mentioning in what is the YouTube chat, saying that Nick Yakubov picking up a black flag for exiting the pits in front of him and hitting the brakes, and therefore that explains the altercation that we saw there. And thank you for the clarity, Carl. We do appreciate that in the YouTube chat. So a little bit of shenanigans going on there, but I get the feeling all the drivers will now get away with it, albeit there might have been some what is intermediary penalties applied, particularly to Nick Yakubov, to having to clear the black flag. But I'm sure now they'll all settle down and go racing once again, well, at least qualifying once again, I should say, as the first of the flying laps goes to Blake Phillips on 106.641, albeit as he takes the apex curve there a little bit too sharp through turn number 3 and into 4. You can see the rear of the car getting ready to step out, so having to catch the car just in time. And well, Blake Phillips there a little bit out of momentum and rhythm now as he makes his way through turn number 7. It's so easy to make a mistake in this car, given the fact the fixed setup that drivers are running. It has had the traction control turned off, and the anti-lock braking system, or the ABS, has been reduced down to its minimum. So therefore we have made this car a little bit more skittish to drive in terms of how you get that power down. And when you hit those curves, also trying to get the throttle down, where you can imagine you put the car up on 2 wheels for a brief moment, it comes back down, and well, one side of the tyres is going to lose traction, whereas the others are having to do all the hard work, and it's all going to be about throttle modulation in order to bring it back under control. But Phillips makes his way for us. Roger Ganesh goes up faster now, 105.849. Meanwhile, Nick Bader now creeps up to 106.102. Nick Yakubov a 106.5. So the lap times continue to come in. What's Blake Phillips done? He's not improved this time around. He makes one in, and we jump aboard here for a flying lap with Phillips as he makes his way up through at turn number 1. But it's a long run through turn number 1. Finally finds the corner eventually, and now through turns 2, 3 and 4, and heading up from second gear all the way up into third gear as he makes his way into 5. Just a quick run to the inside wall and then into turn number 6. A lift off the throttle there, a dab of the brakes to get the nose pointed in, and now hard on the anchors through turn number 7 down to first gear. Let the car roll out slightly, but back immediately turning right for turn number 8, and now flat out here through 9 in towards 10. Takes a bit of apex curve there, tries to straight line as much as possible, but not too much to pick up a corner cut, and onto the brakes he goes for turn number 11 here down to first gear. Nice aggressive approach to the apex and back on the throttle, immediately loading up the rear right tyre and then just powering on. And now as he makes his way towards the end of this flying lap, what can Phillips do here as he comes all the way through turns 12 and 13? But as they roll the way on through, and what we can see there, I believe that's Carl Peterson taking it a bit slowly on what is the below yellow ramp and will, as a result, not committing to another lap at the moment. But Phillips comes across the line. He does improve personally to a 106.627, but it's not enough to move him from P4 at the moment. So Phillips, who looked strong initially, is now falling in a little bit as there's a big moment for Nick Yakubov, who hits the inside pit exit wall, and Nick Yakubov having to tow to the pits as we say hello to him in YouTube chat. I think there's a little bit of a back and forth discussion in the YouTube chat between Nick and Kyle with regards to what exactly happened on pit exit there. But we'll put that behind us now, gentlemen, and move on to the race here, or at least we will hear in the commentary booth. But meanwhile, I appreciate your inputs on that little altercation, but as I try to make the way on through, we haven't got too long left in this qualifying session, but Roger Ganesh right now, with 1.5 minutes left on the clock, is looking to be the AM who really is on fire right now, and well, it has been a long time since we've seen Roger Ganesh competing for what is an AM pole position, and well, you'd have to go quite a way back, I believe, to the last time we ran the Winter GR86 Championship, if my memory serves me correctly, in 2024, to see Ganesh chasing after a pole positioning class, but right now, everything is pointing in the right way as he goes on to one more lap, albeit I do believe our drivers have been told they need to vacate the circuit by the time the clock strikes 7 minutes. So I think Ganesh's qualifying will be over as Nick Bader comes into the pit lane. Meanwhile, Nick Yakubov coming on around here to complete what will be his final flying lap, as we do have, well, in fact, he decides to abort the lap, and he's not too happy with regards to that one, so he won't improve from P3. Roger Ganesh is in the pit lane. I believe it is going to be pole position then for Roger Ganesh, ladies and gentlemen, and what a pole position it'll be. Billman DaCosta down in P7 conversely, so it's not worked out at all for the Bearpoke Zero driver, and as they make the way on through, Blake Phillips will be starting today, P4 in the AM class, and I think that'll be a bit of a frustrating month. Now, of course, all these laps provisional, subject to the accounting of any off tracks that are automatically detected by the iRacing simulator service, but we'll only find out about that when they go to the grid. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what it does mean is this AM session does come to an end, which does give us a prime opportunity to take a moment here to talk about what is our special intermission today in between all the qualifying session. And for those wondering what exactly we do mean, well, ladies and gentlemen, as the circuit does fall silent and all the drivers make the way into the pit lane if they're not already there, well, for those not aware, we are going to take a brief pause now before commencing the pro qualifying session to remember one of the original members of the Middle of the Pack Racing League. Because, as we do bring him up on screen, sadly, at the start of this month, John Wilding passed away following his long-term battle with cancer. And well, John, for those who did not know him, was on the grid for what was the first 3 seasons of the Middle of the Pack Racing League, but his legacy extends further than just on our grid. He was one of the early members of DNA Motorsports, who many of you may recall as one of the most successful teams in the Middle of the Pack Racing League's history. John's sim racing story extends across iRacing, GT Sport, as in Gran Turismo Sport, Gran Turismo 6 and Gran Turismo 5, where his efforts, in particular in Gran Turismo 5 and Gran Turismo 6, saw him reach the GT Academy America in 2011. And as you will have seen from his initial photo, he was even interviewed as part by GT Planet as part of his GT Academy journey. But John was not just a sim racer. On the real circuit, he competed in the SCCA Spec Miata, from which his nickname Spec was derived, and indeed he got the reputation of being known as John Miata Spec Wilding, or just John Spec Wilding. And he also competed in Champ Car and the historic Endurance Racing Series. Widely regarded as a highly positive and optimistic man who could always make you laugh, John will certainly be missed by his family, friends, and by us here at the Middle of the Pack Racing League. So, John, the grid will feel just that little bit empty without you. But no, your spirit lives on, and we will all aspire to embody the positive attitude you brought to everyone around you. May you rest in peace. And well, ladies and gentlemen, they're remembering none other than John Spec Wilding, one of the original legendary racers in the Middle of the Pack Racing League from DNA Motorsports and all the way through the sim racing and real world of motorsport. He will be remembered. We now do pick up once again here in qualifying as we come onto the pro session. Indeed, a bit of an emotional day for this round number 5, in one of the greats of the Middle of the Pack Racing League being no longer with us, but still everyone now channeling their energies to absolutely roar on into what has been this qualifying session. And as we can see, John Lauzon being one of the many out there at the moment in the pro class, looking to absolutely get it right when it comes to green flag racing by looking to start off strong in this qualifying session of the day. But will he be able to? That is going to be the big question here as he makes his way on through, and all the drivers out there right now trying to get the best possible laps. And that's why we did have the 1 minute intermission there, all the drivers falling silent and being parked up in the pit lane in remembrance of John Wilding. But as we do get the qualifying action back underway, well, we've seen the AMs give it their all, and Roger Ganesh does seem to be the man who has taken that AM pole position. But who will be on what is pro pole? Now we're going to find out as our pro drivers make the way around for what is their first flying laps, and the first one to do so will be none other than Edwin Onofre as he comes across the timeline to go onto a flying lap. Of course, slightly cold tyres still. That's going to mean that he's not going to be feeling all the warmth so far of what will be the lap as he tries to put it on in. But as he makes way through turn number 1 and in towards turns 2, 3, 4 and 5, we're making his way from the left into the double right and then left complex again, that quick switch back of directions. It's all going to be about balancing the weight transfer of the car here, something that is Toyota. It's a relatively light car, and with its rather supple frame, it does mean you can get away with some quick direction changes, but even a car like this will have its limits, as we do have a time on the board there for what is George Louise, and I do believe that's a 107.626, but I believe that may be from what's his initial outlap, and it's been classified as a lap, but we'll have to wait and see whether he's going to be able to improve as the session goes on when he does get his initial flying laps underway. But as an off-ramp makes his way down towards what will be the bank in the turns 12 and 13, and we're coming towards the very end as he roars his way through in the number 99 machine. And that lovely camera shot there, a distant view from the gantry stands showing just how much speed he'll be carrying as he roars his way around, and off-ramp setting the initial time at what is going to be a 105.908. Well, the AMs have definitely laid all the rubber down here at the Phoenix Raceway, and with that, their times are only going to climb now in terms of how high they'll go up the timing tower as Shahi Zahir comes across that timing line, and well, a 106.913 as he makes his way onwards in towards the next sequence of corners. And well, we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do on the next lap now as he tries to move into those 105s as soon as humanly possible. But as all tries to come through, we've also got Aaron Lahr coming towards the end of his first flying lap, and what's he going to set as Louise off camera sets a 106.617, so starting to move a little bit closer to the times he wants to. Well, Lahr there for 108.148, but I think just getting that initial banker on the board, and then cognizant, I think, of now can he improve upon it. Kaya Marai's not out there at the moment in qualifying, nor Jermaine Warren. So we've got 16 drivers here today, but we're missing one in the AM class of qualifying, and also it looks like we might be missing one in the pro class of qualifying. Hopefully we'll see Marai's on the grid when we do go at green flag racing. But as our drivers now come towards the midpoint or the end of their second flying laps in the pro class, well, here comes John Lauzon. He's not too far behind Edwin Onofre, and in fact Onofre is going to come across the timeline first. Does not improve. What about Lauzon? Neither does he improve. So is the circuit going away here? Well, let's jump on board and find out as we get a flying lap with John Lauzon as he trail breaks his way all the way through turn number 1 and into 2 he goes, and now into the switch of 3 and 4 as he makes way through the double right before heading upwards towards the left-hander at turn number 5. Flat out here as he goes then before getting ready to dab the brakes and chuck the nose into turn number 6, and now on to the Yankees here for turn 7 down to first gear. Very smooth there on the brakes is Lauzon. We'd expect nothing less as he battles there with some power. Oversteer continues to battle with it as he comes out of 9 in towards 10. The car looking very, very squirmy on the throttle as he heads in towards 11. Onto the brakes, going as late as possible. Trail braking down to first gear and immediately back on the throttle at apex. It's seamless, that transition from the brake pedal to the throttle pedal, and now as he comes out onto the oval banking here, well, this is looking to be a fast lap, albeit his middle sector not as strong as his previous pairs. Edwin Onofre, meanwhile, an absolutely purple middle sector, the fastest of everybody. Lauzon a personal best in sector 1, so it's all going to come down to the final sector between these two. And off in the distance, Edwin Onofre does not improve. What about Lauzon here as he crosses the line? He does not improve either. Surely somebody in the pro class is going to improve. Was the first lap the only lap when they were going to get a good time in? Because right now Roger Ganesh could potentially steal away and pole position at this rate as Shahi Zahir shows there is some time out on the circuit, a 106.461. With the sun going away, surely the circuit has not cooled down that much. I wonder if perhaps there's been a change of wind direction over the course of qualifying, and perhaps that is what has led to the lap times falling away a little bit compared to where they would have been at the start of the session when the AMs are out there. Well, either way, this is going to make for a very unique starting grid if all these lap times stand as they're currently listed, because you would have an AM on pole position, and I don't think that's ever happened. I know we have had a driver in a lower class take overall victory. Indeed, many of you remember in the Radical SR8 Cup where we did see the Pro-Am driver, one of our Pro-Am drivers from Rockefeller Racing, take that victory there. Their name does escape me. In fact, I can immediately remember it now. It's Ilya Speaker who took that victory. But right now, as our drivers make their way through, Roger Ganesh could be the first non-top class driver to take a pole position in qualifying if these laps are all accounted for, and that would be an incredible achievement. And indeed, and the best part of what's been 4 years, at least as I can remember, at the Middle of the Pack Racing League, we have never seen that ever happen. But as the hair comes towards the timing line, well, he does not improve this time around, and with a minute left on the clock here, all the drivers now will be very eager to find improvement. Of course, the one thing that our pros do have in their session is they do have overtime in effect, which means that if they are on a valid lap, by the time the clock strikes 15 minutes, they are allowed to finish that lap. That's the one thing that the AMs did not have today due to the shortening of what was their qualifying session in honour for the tribute moment there for John Wilding. But the key point being here in the fact that the pro drivers have got a little bit more space to try and improve, but I don't think those improvements are forthcoming. As Aaron Lahr makes his way through the final corner, taking it quite low as he makes his way off the banking and onto the flat, and as he does, he improves to a 107.206, but Lahr not finding anywhere higher than P14 as this stands. Edwin Offred making his way on around. He will squeeze in one more lap thereabouts. He has improved in the middle sector again, but he's not gone purple there this time. But as he heads towards the timeline, what's it going to be for an Offred coming up towards the line then? Not an improvement. John Lauzon, meanwhile, will he get across the line? I think he will. It's going to be very close. In fact, he just misses out, does Lauzon, from being able to cross that line and get another lap in, or does he? I'm not quite sure, to be honest. We'll have to wait and see whether he boxes the car, but either way, Lauzon does not improve that time. James Longston, meanwhile, he is on a flying lap in the fact that he's had an absolutely potent middle sector. He's gone the fastest of everybody. He's making his way now all the way through to what is turns 12 and 13, but I think going a bit slowly there as he makes his way onto the banking. And I think Longston at this point might be coming into the pit lane, and if so, the best he'll achieve is P5 here in qualifying if he is coming in, and he is. So Logston's not going to move any further. In fact, yes, he is going to stay out there. My apologies. Camera angle being a bit deceptive, but Logston doesn't improve from P5. So it looks as though, and we won't get our hopes up too high just yet, just in case we are incorrect, but it could be the case that whilst John Lauzon has taken a provisional pole position, it's only P2 overall, and could we see Roger Ganesh not just take his first AM pole position in qualifying, but take his first overall, and in the MPRL's history, the first ever non-pro class overall pole position set by a driver? Well, we will find out shortly, ladies and gentlemen, because all the drivers are now required to leave their pit, to come out of their cars and, well, in the pit lane, wait for all those laps to be accounted for. But this could be what is a record-breaking qualifying session or a record opening qualifying session, and we will have to wait and see. But Roger Ganesh, by the looks of things, may have just stolen the hearts of everybody here at the Phoenix Raceway on the recommencement of what has been this championship in the Roval Cup. But as all drivers just wait now, and indeed we await in anticipation, well, definitely it is going to be a little bit of an interesting one. But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. We are now making our way to the grid, and will we see Roger Ganesh on pole position? Well, let's find out. And as the grid is being set, it is confirmed. I'm happy to say, ladies and gentlemen, Roger Ganesh has taken the first ever non-pro overall pole position in the World Pack Racing League's history, as far as I can remember, in the 229, and with it and pole. And what an achievement by that man, no doubt about it. He is joined on the front row by pro pole sitter John Lauzon, with a brilliant lap, missing out just by half a tenth at the qualifying checker flag. Edwin Offred starts his day P3 on row number 2, ahead of Nick Bader, who saddles up alongside, and the AMs have had an absolutely phenomenal qualifying session today. James Logston takes P5 for Bear Pope 0 ahead of Shahi Zaher for IT West Senior Vice President. And then on row number 4, it's Nick Yakubov who starts his day P7 for Slipstream Slavs ahead of George Louise, who starts P8. From the Brazilian driver to the American of the Pit Club Sim Racing's Blake Phillips, he starts P9, and your top 10's rounded out by Glenn Bratton. Carl Peterson begins his journey P11 for Caboose Crew ahead of Tom Bryce for IT West Interns Pro Esports Division. And then we do see completing the grid on row 7, Bill DaCosta faster for Bear Pope Zero and Aaron Lahr, the privateer. And it is Kai Morais ahead of Jermaine Warren. And that's how all the drivers will line up. Our 16 entrance day, Morais and Warren not setting lap times, but the grid is almost set and ready to go. In fact, I think we do have all of our cars there. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the lights. And it's lights out and away we go as it's a slow start for Roger Ganesh. He absolutely stalls down after getting the initial launch. So John Lauzon will go around the outside. Edwin Offra now thinks which way can he go? Can he go left? Can he go right? Well, Ganesh is going to cut off his nose there as they make the way into the opening corner. But as they do, you can also see there a tight run by James Logston sneaking up the inside of Nick Bader. It gets very tasty through the opening corners as they roar the way around. And John Lauzon's already pulling away as Edwin Offra squeaks his way into P2. Roger Ganesh down on P3. Further back, you can see Nick Bader there having a back off. It is going to be George Louise up the inside of him through turn 5. And Shahid Zahir also looking for an opportunity as they make the way on through and in towards the turn 7 hairpin. Move there from James Logston up the inside of Ganesh. So after a brilliant pole position, Ganesh having a bit of a slow start and just trying to get himself back up to speed. But the one key thing he's got to keep on his head is the fact that he's still leading the AM class, and therefore he hasn't lost out as much as he could lose out by falling behind another AM driver. He's still got a bit of a buffer. For that, Blake Phillips has had a bit of a tricky start. He gained at the start and then lost some place. He battles side by side with Aaron Lahr, who's had an absolute monumental launch off the line. In fact, he's up by 5 places to P9 now as Lahr, as he looks up the inside of Phillips as they make the way through turn number 12 and onwards towards 13. Well, as they roar the way around and up towards what will be the end of the first lap. It's been an intriguing first lap, no doubt about it, and John Lauzon heads into lap number 2 ahead of Edwin Offray. Then it's James Logston. It's the top 3 of pros. P4 is your AM leader, Roger Ganesh, as they all come down under braking. George Louise P5. And Nick Bader P6, then Shahid Zahir P7, Nick Yakubov P8, Aaron Lahr P9, and Blake Phillips completes your top 10 with Carl Peterson P11 at this time, best of the rest. But more fighting going on as Shahid Zahir now picks his way on past what is Nick Bader there as they make the way on through turns 3 and 4. And just a move there briefly off camera that we did see as Kai Morais into the pit lane conversely. So Morais has got a problem with the car, and I think he's made his way back out. Was it a jump start for Morais potentially? We're not quite sure, but what we do know is he's had to come into the pit lane and then make his way back out. But we will see here. Remember, it's a 30-minute race, not 13 minutes. There's a long way to go in this race, albeit all the drivers right now absolutely itching out of the firing blocks as they make the way out of 11 in towards 12 once again up onto that banking. But looking further back to Billman DaCosta here. Well, it's been a bit of a tricky race so far for the Bear Pope Zero driver, albeit he's gained 1 place in AM class over Glenn Bratton, and Jermaine Warren still behind him. But meanwhile, Glenn Bratton behind also lost a few places since the start. So these drivers now trying to get themselves back on the coattails of the cars in front and not losing that distant toe. But speaking of drivers in the toe, as Zahir right now has got the closing up presence of Nick Bader behind him. Bader taking a little bit of a sneak peek under braking there in towards turn 1 and 2. In fact, he's going to get on the inside. He's going to get very, very close there to the exit pit wall. But Zahir just holds on for now as they make the way off Apex and through turns 3 and 4 and into the left-hander of 5. But you can see Bader right now wants to get ahead. He's feeling as though there's more pace in the car as Bader versus what is Shahid Zahir. And as they make the way on around through turn number 7, the problem's going to be at this point in the fact that right now Roger Ganesh has been allowed to creep away a little bit, and Bader does not want that to happen. But Zahir, of course, is the big stumbling block first. He's got to get his way through. Now, will he look for into turn 11? My gut instinct says no, he won't, because then he'll compromise his run out to 11 and gives Zahir the counter attack. We can see there a bit of a switchback move from Bader. It's a good run here as the AM driver, one of our top 3 AM drivers in the championship, looking for a move up the inside. It's going to be absolutely neck and neck here as they come onto turn number 12. Albeit Bader being on the low line, he will have to turn through at a bit of less distance. Of course, being higher up on the banking means you've got a wider circumference to come through, but the upshot, of course, being up on that banking is the fact you can tuck back into the toe immediately and pick up a much bigger bit of momentum in the run to the next corner, albeit coming down as the brakes into turn number 1. It's only going to be one way through there, and Nick Bader gets the move done for P6. Looking back up towards the top 3. Well, John Lauzon, after that lightning quick start, has fallen back into the clutches and Offred and Logston as the top 3 is now starting to inch together here. And we jump on board with our third place man and Pro Championship leader, James Logston, as he comes out of turn number 7. And what you can see there, the top 3 separated by just over a second as they run nose to tail all the way up towards turn number 11. And in the slipstream orientated chase at the moment, Logston, I think, will be thinking there's no need to attack right now. I've got to wait for an opportunity as Lauzon goes very deep there at turn 11. I think that was a hit to the tyre barrier, albeit a bit of a brief hit, not a major one. But the problem's going to be now, this is going to make it too wide as they power their way onto 12. Lauzon's up high. Meanwhile, it's going to be an off-red low, and Logston's going to try and squeeze on in here and prevent Lauzon from tucking back in. So Logston's going to gain 1 place. He's going to try and gain another here, as it's going to be very close. They make the way across that line, and right now, Nofred coming off the middle of the road now makes it free. three wide as they make the way into turn number 1, and Logsdon backs out of it. Lauzon's going to go wide. He goes onto the grass, does John Lauzon, but he does catch the car just in time, but he's going to take a rallycross line here to return, and that will put him all the way down to P4 as Roger Ganesh gets up the inside there, but Lauzon immediately back in the offensive. Look at that, you can tell there is a lot of frustration there for Lauzon. He just found himself in the wrong place on the outside into that corner. He's going to try and squeeze his way in to turn number 6, and Ganesh sees it coming and says, okay, well, it's only going to go one way if you do that, and it's going to end up with us both in the steward's room. So Ganesh right now knows what he can do in order just to simply hold his position, and Lauzon is losing sight of the top 2 as their gap is now up to 1.6 seconds, and Lauzon I think will feel here as though, well, whilst it's good battling, it's not battling that's gone his way whatsoever, and that is going to absolutely be something that's only going to make him want to push a little bit harder. And when we do see this from Lauzon, it normally goes one of two ways. Either it ends up in disaster, albeit that's a rare occasion, or alternatively we do see some of the finest driving from Lauzon, and I think the breakfast for dinner driver has got the bit between his teeth and is feeling very hungry now as they make the way through turn number 13. He goes low here, and we're immediately looking for that move up the inside. But speaking of moves being made, will there be a move into turn 1 from Logsdon versus an off-road? There won't, but Lauzon immediately roaring his way into turn 1 up the inside of Roger Ganesh, and I think sending the message to Roger, which is, look, you may have been ahead of me, but don't get in my way. I've got much bigger places to take here, and immediately now starting to pull away and hoping he can close back up to an off-road Logsdon before they put enough distance between them, in that fact that Lauzon wouldn't be able to catch up again. Further back, we've got Nick Bader also on the attack here versus George Louise, and it looks so the AM drivers are all trying to close up to the back of Ganesh. Ganesh just run a very happy race there in the what is the pearlescent, I should say. I was almost going to say something else, but pearlescent green and yellow. It's under GT Turtles machine, and as they come in towards turn number 11, well, right now the number 229 driver has got George Louise with a little bit of a buffer between himself and Nick Bader, so Ganesh absolutely holding on here and doing everything right, it would seem, at the moment, as they make the way in towards that turn number 12 once more. We had a bit of an incident further back down the order for Aaron Lahr, who's dropped all the way down, and in fact had to retire the car due to an incident of some description. I do wonder whether we'll be able to get a replay of what's happened to Aaron Lahr. We'll have to wait and see, but meanwhile, let's stay with the live pictures for now, as there's a quick look up the inside by Bader versus Louise. He can't quite find it, and in the end has to back out. Meanwhile, James Logsdon there up the inside, and we catch the tail end of that move for what is the lead of the race, but Logsdon does take the lead through turn 2 and into 3, 4, and as soon as he does that, well, meanwhile, it's going to be Louise who has moved onwards, but meanwhile, Shahi's ahead, got ahead of Nick Bader. Is going very slowly, so there's been a bit of a moment for both Bader and also what has been Logsdon, and oh my goodness, and Blake Phillips there, I think almost getting it wrong and almost sideswiping one of his big championship rivals in the AM class. And I think Phillips has taken a bit too much speed out of 6 in towards 7 and trying to get the brakes on, and in the end having to snap the car to the left in order to avoid making contact to the rear of Bader, where it's all kicking off, and there's even more to come here as now it's Bryce battling with Carl Peterson. Peterson absolutely back on the inside. Bryce started to make a move coming out of turn 8, but Peterson trying to come back at him here as the IT West driver now has to play a drag race game versus the Volt machine, but the Volt yellow machine of Peterson going low here, and it will mean that Bryce is going to have to go high, and it's going to cost him some time and some speed as they make the way on around, and in the end it's only going to go the way of Peterson in terms of he'll get a nose ahead, but as they make the way into the braking zone, will it change? Well, we'll have to see what happens between the two of them, because they are going to be too wide all the way down to the braking zone, but in the end Peterson will get ahead and keep Bryce behind him for the time being in the battle for P10. But from then we look to James Logsdon, who's once again got John Lauzon right behind him here, and well, we would love to cut to a replay of some of the action that's happened earlier on, but we can't in the fear of missing something that's going to happen at any moment. And as they make the way out turn at 7 in towards A, well, Logsdon right now falling back a little bit from an off rare, and I think Lauzon might be absolutely wanting to go on the attack here to try and pick up the places if he can, but in fact we do have a brief breather, and with it we have a moment to take a look at what exactly happened for Aaron Lahr only moments ago, ladies and gentlemen, and here is a quick replay. And this was Lahr at the time chasing after Nick Yakubov, so battling for P8 at the time. Oh, going to be a bit of power oversteer at the rear of the car, letting go. And that was Lahr's race very quickly finding its way into the barrier, and that shortly afterwards saw him have to tow the car to the pit lane with major suspension damage. We also did have the move made by James Logsdon on Edwin Offrare, and here's a replay of that. And this was into turn 1, coming from quite far back, and Offrare going quite deep. The door was left open, and Logsdon in the end absolutely went for it and got it done. And well, that explains the story there about how he took the position. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's return to your live racing pictures. And well, as we do return to the live racing, still more to come here at the Phoenix Raceway. And well, please do forgive what is our time in the top center of the screen. Don't worry about that. It has proven to be a little bit erroneous, but the lap count there definitely is accurate. And we've still got plenty more laps to be turned. And we'll keep you abreast as to when we are nearing what will be the conclusion of the race. Of our timer being a little bit out of sorts. But right now, Onofre, Logsdon, Lauzon, your top three, looking very close together as Roger Ganesh, your AM leader in P4, now has two pros between himself and Nick Yakubov and Nick Bader. And I think Bader having a bit of a moment. We haven't quite had the story as to what happened to Bader. It's the one replay we haven't been able to get. But the 276 driver right now is going to try and pick up the story here and make a move on Nick Yakubov, looking up the inside on the low line for turn 13. And well, that is going to be a straightforward textbook move here, as far as he would be able to make a textbook move, albeit this series has not been for textbook moves. I can tell you that in the fact they've all been giving it their everything. But it looks like the inside there, we ride on board and look back from the rear of the 276. So you can see Yakubov tries to go for the cutback move, but Bader sees it coming and says, okay, now what are you going to do if I park the car on apex? And well, in the end, Yakubov has to back off there as much. He would have loved to have cut over the apex curve a bit more at turn number 3 into 4. If he had done that, he would have picked up an off track and indeed have been subject to a slowdown penalty, and he wouldn't want to pick that one up, not at all. But the drivers come through the right hand there of turn at number 7. You can see Blake Phillips now picking up the back of this battle. Roger Ganesh, meanwhile, is starting to pull away into the distance. The gap to Ganesh from Bader being what is 3 seconds and growing little by little. So some brilliant racing to come here. And Roger Ganesh, meanwhile, absolutely roaring on through as we say hello to Mark Senegal, who's saying that Roger representing the Turtles and well, will be, I think, being jokingly kicked off of the Sunday GT Turtles team to form what is the Sunday GT Phoenix Speedster team at this rate. And indeed, right now, this pace is absolutely brilliant. I do have to wonder what he's had for breakfast, and surely it wouldn't be dinner, because otherwise John Lauzon might be looking to take tips from him. But as they head across that timeline, and jokes aside, well, I'll tell you one thing, what's not a joke right now is that John Lauzon right on the back of this freeway battle for what is the leader of this race. But it's Logsdon and Onofre once again getting very tense and terse, and well, it's Logsdon who is the attacker here, and Onofre is the defender. And Lauzon, meanwhile, is watching from the background in the proverbial popcorn seat view and wondering how he can potentially be involved in this. Well, I think right now he's got to play the patience game, because if he doesn't play the patience game, the problem will be that he could get involved in the battle with Logsdon and he could allow Onofre just to run away. Alternatively, if Logsdon and Onofre have a little bit of contact between each other and that unsettles them, Lauzon may end up ploughing into the instant and expediting it a little bit further. So he's going to have to be patient here. We do know that Lauzon does have the patience of a saint when he needs to, but of course, everybody's patience will wear out when you want to gain places. We ride on board here with the 77 driver who gets a better run out of turn 11 versus the serious business Bear Pope Zero machine of Logsdon. And as they make the way around, Lauzon thinks about pulling out the toe, but he respects the fact that if he goes high, he's going to lose momentum. So instead he cuts low here, looking to go on the pit line. And as he does, well, there is going to be Logs on the right of your picture, but Lauzon will go all in under brake in here, try and make the move count. It's going to be too wide between the two of them onto the anchors. Lauzon nice and tight there, gets it stopped on the dime and moves back into P2. And well, the number 77 driver, the reason he has that door number 770, it brings him at double the luck when he's got the numbers 7 there. And well, I believe I'm making that up to us. I don't know whether that's the reason why he runs number 77. I'll have to get a word with him in the pit line. But one thing I can tell you right now is that fortune seems to be smiling his way as he takes it very gingerly there through turn number 7, and in fact almost, I think, pinching the car up on the apex curve, and well, won't make that mistake again, because I think if he'd gone a little bit higher there, you could have seen the whole rear of the car snap round on him. But still, that shows you how hard he's pushing and how much he's committing to the bit to try and bring home what is that maiden win of this championship season. But looking to Tom Bryce, still trying to find his way past Kyle Peterson. These two are an absolutely brilliant scrap for P10. And for the uninitiated, if you're wondering why you're seeing pros and AMs battle each other, AMs being represented by what is the orange windscreen visor and also what is the orange wind mirrors on certain cars and also the orange door card numbers, well, those are the AMs and the pros are the light blues. The reason you're seeing them fight is because points are scored first and foremost on overall finishing position, and that encourages all drivers of all classes to fight each other, and it always therefore means that drivers of a lower class can take a little bit of joy when they do take the fight to drivers of a higher class and beat them, because it's not just about showing how much you've improved, but it's also scoring points for your championship and gaining some points over those pros and indeed your rivals in doing so. The only exception is the fact the AMs also do have points for podium places, 3 for first, 2 for second and 1 for third, but that's very close. It's a tap to the rear of Lauzon's car from Logsdon. It sends John Lauzon round. Meanwhile, Logsdon immediately pulls off race line and takes it as slow as humanly possible in order to make sure he doesn't gain from it, and I think he will be waiting for Lauzon to catch back up if he can see Lauzon, otherwise he might resume the racing here. And I think Logsdon's going to have to resume the racing, given the fact there's too much gap and too many cars now, and Lauzon is the best part of 4 seconds back, but a very small and innocent mistake, and that may just seal the deal with regards to the racing for what is the overall win, because Edwin Offray now will have a 3.5 second gap to play with all the way to the end, albeit we still do have the best part of what is half the race distance to go. But can we get a replay of what exactly happened there? And what a major misfortune for what was John Lauzon, and the bad luck seems to strike him once more. But let's take a look at the replay. And this was under braking. We look back from the rear of what was Lauzon's car at the time, under braking, and just a tiny tap to the rear of the car, and it just in the end sends Lauzon round. And that was the story of James Logsdon versus John Lauzon, and Lauzon once again experiencing major misfortune right when he's coming on strong. But we return to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, and there's still more of it to come. And there's no doubt about it. We look back from the rear of Logsdon's car now, as he does have Nick Bader closing up behind him. And in fact, I think these drivers all absolutely itching for a bit of a scrap, and Logsdon in particular will be now looking to try and pick and place his way through his rivals. But from them, Roger Ganesh being passed there by George Louise, we come right back to the thick of the racing action. And well, it looks like Ganesh might be running out a little bit of steam here, because Louise now up into P2 with everything that's happened. Shahi Zaher's right there, then James Logsdon, and then Nick Bader is still on the back of this. He may have dropped Nick Yakubov over the last couple of laps, but one thing's for certain, Nick Bader is not giving in here. He wants to try and chase down what is that and victory. And well, Roger Ganesh has been strong in the first half of the race, but something tells me right now that he might be just falling away on pace a little bit. That's very close there between Zaher and Ganesh. That was almost a nightmare moment. Those two got within millimetres of contact, and well, Zaher absolutely in control, and I think Ganesh meanwhile just simply focusing on his own race, which is right to do. Logsdon just picked his way past Bader, and Bader's been muscled back down by these pro drivers, but he's got to believe that if he stays there right now, he will be able to get involved in the fight. You can see Zaher parking the car on the inside coming out of turn 6 into 7, but he's going to go deep out the turn 7 hairpin. Through 8 and 9 they go, so Logsdon picks up another place. James Logsdon immediately on the charge here as they make the way in towards turn number 11. It is very close between them right now, and Bader looking up the inside there of Zaher, thinking about it, but then thinking, you know what, if I do this, it's only going to cost me time, so he decides not to. John Lauzon meanwhile just picked his way past Blake Phillips, gaining a bit more ground. More to still come between all the drivers, and Blake Phillips there now tucking into the toe, and this is a very different day for what is your AM Championship leader in the 225. Not quite on the pace of the top 3 of the AM class, that's for certain. And I think at this point for the Pit Club Sim Racing driver Phillips, it's all going to be about damage limitation before we move on to our next round at Charlotte Roval in a week's time for round number 6. But definitely Phillips right now, I think, will be thinking, okay, what am I missing that everybody else is doing right here? And well, we can't give him the answer to that, but what we can say is that it's visible on a screen right now and in your pictures, ladies and gentlemen, that Phillips is just not there compared to the pace we saw at Alton Park. But still, everyone has their ups and downs, and this might just be what is a trough, in otherwise what will be a season full of peaks. But as we do look from at turn, what is at turn number 6, and from Phillips in P9 back to the battle for P2, we can see here Louise trying to pull away a little bit now from Ganesh after that move that we saw in towards the hairpin, and Ganesh now falling backwards into P3, but I think still trying to hold on for that overall podium, and Ganesh will be very happy that one. We have seen a few AM overall podiums this season, most of them scored by none other than Nick Bader, one of them scored by Blake Phillips at Alton Park, and will Ganesh be able to add his name to that list of AM podiums for this season? Indeed, it has been a very different season in the Winter GR86 Championship, in the fact that whilst we may only have 16 drivers here at the midway point, one thing that is for certain is that the quantity does not belie the quality of the racing, and we are seeing some top quality racing here today as they head in towards lap number 17. Now, we are expecting, based on a 30-minute race, approximately 27 laps, so therefore we are over the halfway point at this time. We still do have quite a bit of distance to go, and tyre life is going to be a concern. And we have typically seen over the course of what have been our 30-minute sprint races so far, it's all about who can manage the tyres well. And speaking of not managing things well, that is Nick Yakubov, who's had a long way round at what is, I believe, turns 3 and 4. He's going to lose out there to Peterson and Bryce. So I had to find out what's happened to Yakubov, and we'll get a replay of that shortly, but that's not the way he wanted to point the car, that's for certain. And Nick Yakubov has fallen all the way down to P11 and indeed P5 in the AM class when he was running in a comfortable P3 in the class and trying to chase after Nick Bader for the runner-up spot. But do we have a replay? Yes, we do, and this is what happened to Nick Yakubov only moments ago. Now, this was into the corner, and that was a very close moment there between himself and John Lauzon, and on power into turn number 3. Contact there between the two of them, and I think Lauzon just trying to get the power down, and in the end Beta being a bit, not Beta, Jakubov being a bit slow on the uptake, and well, Lauzon getting him a tap on the rear, and I'm sure they'll talk about that one afterwards, and miss anticipation, but that moment there where John Lauzon just coming in a bit too quick and expecting Jakubov to be the same, but it wasn't to be. But let's return to your live racing, and as we come back to the racing action live on our timing screens, well, we do see our drivers continue to push onwards here in what is lap number 18, and George Louise right now, he may have got himself into P2, but the problem is now in the fact that he's got a long queue of cars immediately behind him, and that is James Logsdon, who's picked himself all the way back to P3. Roger Ganesh, the AM leaders in P4, ahead of Shahi Zahair, albeit I believe Ganesh is having some connectivity issues, so hopefully that's not a sign of something that's to come. That would be heartbreak if it was to be a race ender as a result, but then again, if we did see a disconnection in the simulator service, it'd be no different than seeing an engine blowout in reality, albeit engine blowouts not modelled in iRacing, if those of you are a little bit worried or concerned about that. And as our drivers make their way through turn 12 and in towards 13, right the way on through, well, I believe they are modelled, but we won't be seeing any here today, while they make their way up towards turn number 1. Coming on down here, Louise covering off that inside. It's going to be, what is Logsdon looking around the outside? Can he go for the move? And the answer is no, he can't. And well, trying to go all the way around. In fact, he might be able to. This is a lot of commitment for Logsdon to try and go all the way down the outside of turns 1 and 2. And then in the end, Louise just simply stops the car in time. You can see Logsdon feeling confident. If he can't get to the inside in time, he'll just simply go all the way round. He feels like he can carry more speed compared to his rival. And well, that is telling as they all come down onto the anchors here for turn 7 once again. Through they go. Logsdon takes a quick look up the inside, a little bit of a sideways moment. I don't think there was contact, or if there was, it would have been a tiny tap to the rear of Louise's car, but you can tell that Logsdon wants to get on through because Ed went off for him. Meanwhile, he's 7.5 seconds up the road, and I think right now at this point, he's going to be thinking about, okay, well, what do I need to do now in order to bring it home? And the answer is he just needs to keep out of trouble. But speaking of trouble, in terms of finding it, here comes trouble for Louise, as it's going to be Logsdon on the inside. There's contact between the two of them, and well, it's going to be George Louise turned across the road, and just missing Nick Bader there, as John Lauzon goes the other way to go around the sideways machine, and will George Louise then contact with James Logsdon across the grass and rolling backwards onto the circuit. But it's not over yet, because now Roger Ganesh is looking around the outside of Logsdon but doesn't quite find it, and you can see it's going to be Zahair now looking for an opportunity around the outside of the AM leader, with Nick Bader staying with them. But as they roll the way on through and in towards turns 2, 3 and 4, these drivers all so close together, and right now nothing between them as they come up towards turn number 6, but it is getting so close and so tasteful in the fight for what is the other two podium positions. And our friend may be running away with the victory here, but right now nobody's running away with P2 nor P3, and I don't think it's over yet. And I think we still got the question of who exactly out of these 4 drivers, if anybody else able to get into this fight. I think John Lauzon would fancy his chances here, given the fact he's only 1.5 seconds away. Well, you can imagine here it is going to get very frantic before all is said and done, and Lauzon is closing here quickly. Now in terms of what's the Logsdon versus Louise incident, well, I do believe there it's 2 different interpretations. The fact Logsdon was trying to go low, he would perhaps argue that Louise just came down a little bit at an angle towards him. Meanwhile, Louise would argue he was holding his line, and perhaps Logsdon was trying to fit himself into a space that didn't exist. But of course, we only saw it from one camera angle. We may get a replay in a moment, but that's for the stewards to take a look at if it is taken to the stewards. But right now, James Logsdon focusing on just pushing forward and trying to leave what is the rest of the cars behind him off in the distance, albeit that's going to be a lot easier said than done. That's no doubt about it, because the one thing about the battling between the drivers here is that nobody is holding anything back, and I think we do have time for a quick replay as to what happened between James Logsdon and George Louise, and here is the replay, ladies and gentlemen. And this was coming along, and let's take a look. And it's looking as though there, well, that camera angle does make it look as though Logsdon trying to fit into a gap which Louise was trying to close. But of course, then the big question does come to what was the intention of 2 drivers and the timing of the contact. So we're going to leave our thoughts on it there, but that is the quick replay of the incident, and then the subsequent move attempt around the outside by Roger Ganesh into turn 1 versus James Logsdon. But definitely a bit of a day where there's been some challenging moments between the drivers. I think the stewards may have their hands full as we return to the live race in action. And as we come back to it, we'll still plenty plenty of distance to go, albeit in terms of number of laps remaining. We are on lap number 22, as led by this man, Edwin Offren, number 99, and we are expecting there to be a grand total of 27 laps here today. So you do the quick mathematics. We've got 6 laps left on the cards, including the one we're currently on, and still plenty of excitement to prevail. But looking at back to Billman da Costa as he makes way across the timeline, currently in P12. He's chasing after Glenn Bratton, who is in the yellow and red machine just in front there, and the Bear Pope Zero driver at the opposite end of the field compared to his teammate at Logston, but still enjoying the racing just as much as his teammate as he comes out of turn. Comes out of turn at 2 and 3 and in towards 4-5. Right now, da Costa staying close and looking to go on the attack in the 283, but it's looking as though he's going to have to get a little bit closer before he can think about attempting to bounce. Roaring his way on through the corners, and as he does so, well, right now Bratton seems to be a little bit more adept there in the infield section by comparison. That gap just opened up for a brief moment and then closing down once again on the exit turns 8 and 9. So it is swings and roundabouts between these two, to use the age-old proverb, in terms of the fact one being stronger at 1 point a lap compared to the other, albeit the one thing that da Costa does have in his back pocket is the fact he will gain the toe here as they make their way onto the banking. But from them, we then do look back towards the top 2 battle, well, in fact the P2 battle I should say. And here's still Logston trying to pull away. We've got 5 cars in contention for it, and right at the back of this pack of cars is John Lauzon, who we ride on board with right now in the 77 as Bader. They're getting very, very close to what is, I believe, is ahead. They're going to go 2 wide into turn 5, and surely Lauzon's not going to try and make it 3 wide. He thinks about it, but Indian just tucks him behind Zahair and says, come on Shahi, we need you to move forward, and therefore Bader immediately goes defensive into turn number 7. Well, as soon as we come to this battle, all fireworks kick off again. Lauzon right now trying to find his way through, trying to do what James Logston's had to do previously, and right now he looks to the inside into turn 11, I think just to try and send a message, but Indian goes a bit later on the brakes, and John Lauzon absolutely throwing everything at this. He runs as wide as possible at turn 11, runs it to the wall, and well, he's going to have a sensational draft here as he makes one to the bank into turn 12 and 13. But as he does, initially stays high and then lets the car start to drop. He's going for the double draft here as he comes on through the left-hander, and the Zuhair just simply holding his ground, putting the car in the middle of the road initially. Bader now looking to go up the inside. Lauzon in the end doesn't get as much of a draft as we thought he would, so therefore he's going to the back of it, look around the outside. He'll know not to go too wide out there because that's where he went before when it all went to the grass. And coming back in now as we go on to lap number 24, only 4 laps remaining, including this one. Time is of the essence now for many a driver, including what is there. George Louisa looks at the inside of Blake Phillips into turns 1 and 2 and makes that move happen and gets it done there and moves into P7, does the Brazilian driver. And right now Phillips just watching on there. The pit club sim racing driver 9, a couple of points are not coming his way unless he can get the place back. I think that's going to be easier said than done as they come out of turn 7. A bit of a wobble there for Phillips, I think, taking too tight an exit line. Then Sonny realising it and realising I need a bit more space. The apex at turn 8, such an easy mistake to make at Phoenix Raceway, and well, definitely has been one of those changing days today for the 225 driver. But from him, we then come back to Zahair, and well, with Roger Ganesh being allowed to run away from this battle for P4, it looks like Ganesh now being a whole second clear. That is going to give him some breathing room here in which not to be dragged into this fight all the way to the end, and they roll the way across the timeline. Can Bader look for an opportunity here to make it a close run-up spot versus Ganesh? Well, he needs to pass ahead to do so, but I think right now Zahair's just got enough over him in order to be able to stay at 1 step ahead. But as they come up through at turn number 2, we look a little bit further down the field. A driver who we didn't see in qualifying, but here he is in the race down in P14 with Kai Moraes chasing after him. The two of them didn't make qualifying. Moraes and Jermaine Warren together on circuit. Warren P14 currently, and Kai Moraes in P15. Let's not forget about them. They may not have been stars of today compared to some of their rivals, but they deserve a little bit of time on the screen, no doubt about it, and still in it to win it, as all the drivers are. As they come on to what is their 25th turn of circuit, well, they've got a bit of distance between them and the rest of the field. But meanwhile, speaking of distance that's very close, well, we look back from the rear of Shahi Zahair's car, the ITC West Senior Vice President's number 9 from Canada, right now trying to keep Bader just a little bit further away as they head in towards turn at number 12. Further back, you can see John Lauzon a further, what is 6 tenths behind, and not really playing an element in this fight right now. But I think just waiting to see what's going to happen. We are into the penultimate lap of racing, in the fact that we do have an offer now to lap 26, all the drivers continue to pick up the pace here as they roar the way across that timing line. Blake Phillips, meanwhile, now looking for the counter-attack on Louise as they come in towards turn 1. Louise puts the car in the middle of the road. That'll give him the inside line for the kink. And then into turn 2 they go. Phillips looking for that cutback. He can't quite get it under braking. He just needed to go for the cutback a little bit later. But then Louise would have had it covered off. And George Louise knowing exactly where and when that cutback can happen. And Blake Phillips enjoying the battling, no doubt about it. But I think at this point, feeling as though today it really is now just trying to pick this one pro driver out the way as they come crashing off the apex curbs there in terms of the suspension. And well, it's going to be Phillips on a very tight line through turn 8. He thinks about trying to sneak up the inside there, but knowing it is a closing point of apex, and will Phillips having to back off there, but throwing everything at this. And you've got to give him credit in the fact that he's not going to leave any part of the circuit untouched to try and make a move on his rival there for P7. But coming out of turn number 11, well, Edwin Offred makes his way to the timeline, and the white flag did wave. It means we've got one more lap to go today, and an Offred completely in control. His lead might be diminishing by half a second lap versus James Logsdon, but the thing is he'll feel safe in the fact he's still got 5 seconds and he doesn't need to do anything magical. But speaking of some magic, can John Lauzon pull off some magic here as he tries to look for an opportunity to take the place off of Baden, perhaps even Zahair for P4? Well, it's going to be one of those magical moments if he can get it done. But it's very easy to say, it's very hard to do. And as they come in towards turns 6 and 7, well, the two drivers in front of him have been equal on pace with him since the midpoint of the race. And Lauzon right now, the car that's definitely picked up some damage as well. That damage will be hurting him over the distance. And we're coming out of turn number 8 in towards 9. Well, if he's going to look for the move, it might be coming out of turn 11. He's got to get the absolutely best ever run out of this hairpin as all the drivers make the way on around. But we will see whether he can get it done, albeit doesn't get the best of runs there. And meanwhile, Shahi's ahead does, but from one driver not getting the best of runs to a driver who's had an absolutely calm, cool and controlled run today, well, the checker flag will wave, and for what will be the first time this season, Edwin Offred takes victory here at the Phoenix Raceway. In round number 5 of the championship, James Logsdon comes on home. P2, it's a top 2 for the pros, and then P3 will go the way of your AM winner, Roger Ganesh, who takes his second ever AM win and his first ever overall podium in his MPRL career, ahead of Shahi Zahair. Nick Bader is the AM runner-up, P5, ahead of John Lauzon, with George Louise taking P7 ahead of Blake Phillips, held him off the line with Blake Phillips rounding off the podium. Carl Peterson takes P9 ahead of Tom Bryson. Their brilliant little battle. That completes your top 10. Glenn Bratton will be best the rest, P11 ahead of Billman da Costa. And then we will have, in terms of the last of our leading lap runners, well, we do have Nick Yakubov there, P13. In fact, all the drivers will be finishing this race on the lead lap, I do believe. But Nick Yakubov, P13, and it'll be Kai Moraes and Jermaine Warren who complete your 15 finish as well. Sole retiree early on the day, Aaron Law, unfortunately, finishing at P16 but non-classified. But let's take a look at the scenic view, and with it, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are. What an absolutely brilliant race to bring us back to the Middle of the Pack Racing League Winter GR86 Championship for 2025, ladies and gentlemen. Round number 5 here at the Phoenix Raceway 2008 edition, to the commencement of the Roval Cup here on the Middle of the Pack Racing League on iRacing. It saw Edwin Offred take overall victory, the privateer leading the way, and in the end not getting entangled in the spoils and the battles between what was himself, James Logsdon and John Lauzon, and able to take that victory to his hands. James Logsdon, meanwhile, may have missed out on the win, but still returns to the podium immediately for Bear Pope 0 by 5.5 seconds behind the race winner, but in turn a second clear of AM winner. His first ever overall podium and his second ever AM win in his Middle of the Pack Racing League career, to add to his what was overall pole position, his first ever AM pole position, and indeed setting history by being the first ever AM driver to take an overall pole position in the qualifying session. Give it up for Roger Ganesh for Sunday GT Turtles. And I'll tell you one thing, I think he might have stolen the hearts of everybody today with what's been an absolutely legendary performance at P3. Shahi Zahair, P4 in the number 9 for ITD West Senior Vice Presidents. And an absolutely defensive drive all the way to the finish ahead of Nick Bader. There we did see the AM driver in the 276 take the run-up spot in the AM class, a P5 overall. He won't be too upset about that, but he will, I think, be a little bit annoyed at the fact he wasn't able to bring home the AM win and therefore gain as much ground in his roles as he would have liked. John Lauzon at P6, the privateer for breakfast for dinner there. A frustrating race once again, and Indian could not put a dent into that top 5, so he's had to settle for 6th. Ahead of George Louise, the Brazilian driver, having some brilliant battling back and forth from start to finish today, ahead of Blake Phillips, the Pit Club Sim Racing driver, who in the end just missed out on P7 but had to settle for P8 and with it third place in the AM class. Carl Peterson was P9 for Caboose Crew, ahead of Tom Bryce, with the IT West Interns Pro Esports Division driver enjoying the battle back and forth with the Caboose Crew driver, and in the end completing the top 10 as a result of it. Glenn Bratton was P11 best to rest, ahead of Bear Pope Zero's Billman DaCosta, who came close but couldn't quite take the place away from Bratton at the close. And it was Nick Yakubov of Slipstream Sloths ahead of Kyle Rise and Jermaine Warren completing all of your finishers who were all on the lead lap. Commiserations for our retiree in the race, 23 laps down, an early retirement for Aaron Lahr after that huge shunt into the wall coming out of turn 8 in the early stage of the race. You got to feel for him, and in the end he will be classified as a non-finisher and no points scored. We're going on to the individual class finishing positions, and well, as we can see, Edwin Onofre there taking the victory in the pro class, and what a drive today ahead of James Logston, the Bear Pope Zero driver. Well, it may not have been the victory, but it's still a big haul of points, and it makes amends for the Autumn Park disaster. Shahi Zahair rounded off the pro podium, one of a limited number of pro podiums we've seen for IT West as a whole, including Zahair this season. And well, that was your top 3 in the pro class, ahead of John Lauzon, who just missed out by half a second, and George Louise completing the top 5. It was Tom Bryce, Kyle Rise who completed the finishes in the pro class, and the retirement of Aaron Lahr there. And of course, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that a lot of these drivers, both in the pro and the AM classes, you will see them on the grid in the upcoming Toyota Gazoo Racing North America Esports Series for what is 2025. Indeed, the qualifiers for that being complete quite recently, and a good number of names making the way there, including Edwin Offret, James Logston, I do believe John Lauzon, unless I'm mistaken. But coming from our pros to our AMs, we may be classified as an AM, but he's definitely put on an absolutely pro performance today. Your AM winner, Roger Ganesh for Sunday GT Turtles, by 1.2 seconds over Nick Bader, and then Blake Phillips for the Pit Club Sim Racing completing the top 3, which will mean it'll be relatively even, if my maths is correct, towards the front end of the AM standings. We'll give you an update on that in a week's time when we are at the Charlotte Roval. Carl Peterson was P4 there for Caboose Crew, ahead of the private set Glenn Bratton. Now it's Billman DaCosta, Nick Yakubov, and Jermaine Warren completing the AM standings. And I think there, Edwin Offret saying it absolutely perfectly. Great racing in honour of John Wilding there in the YouTube chat, and well, I don't think it could have been better said, Edwin. What a way to sum up the racing, say indeed, what fantastic racing in memory of John Miata Spec Wilding, and well, I'm sure he would have absolutely loved it. The middle of the pack Racing League legend, indeed the sim racing and real life legend in his own right. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, the circuit falls silent. Indeed, we fall silent here because the racing is complete for today, and that concludes all of our action for round 5 of the championship, and thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed today and you want to know more about the middle of the pack Racing League community, for all that and plenty more, do head to our official Discord first and foremost, and the invite link is available on screen there. And the official Discord is the beating heart of the middle of the pack Racing League community, and there's never been a better time to become part of one of the most thriving and populous North American continent-based sim racing communities. However, we're not exclusive to the North American continent. Indeed, you can be from anywhere in the world in order to be part of the Middle of the Pack Racing League. And, well, do use the invite link there if you do want to get in touch with all the drivers, the teams, the admins, and everything in between. But perhaps if you're a little bit shy, you're more of a social media person, you can follow us on Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/MOP Racing. We can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements and all things Middle of the Pack Racing League. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attentions to round number 6. And save the date, because whilst the racing will occur on what is Wednesday the 12th of March, we'll be covering it all as if it were live on Sunday the 16th of March 2025 as we continue the story at the Charlotte Motor Speedway's Roval course. And well, there it is going to be a round where we could see some further shake-ups. In the pro class, Edwin Onofre has broken the iron-like vice grip that James Logston has had on the sprint race victories. And in the AM class, Roger Ganesh has suddenly announced himself as a prime contender potentially for the AM Class Championship. But will all return to the status quo in round 6? Could we see our big names from today score even bigger? Or could we see new names take to the top step of the respective podiums? Well, you'll have to find out then. But until then, we've been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Until next time, remember to stay well, stay safe, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.